So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of the TEL Advisors Special Interest Group. Today we're going to be talking about mopping up, aligning policy and practice. So basically looking at minimum online presence in our various institutions. Now just a couple of quick things. So you'll see that there's an image up on the screen here with some basic introductions, instructions about how to use Collaborate Ultra. The way that we're going to run this session is we've got 3 speakers. They'll all talk for about 10 minutes. So they'll talk for 10 minutes, answer questions for 5 minutes specifically relating to their projects or what they've discussed. And then at the end, we'll have Kate as the final speaker, sort of kind of giving a bit of a lit review, I guess, of what's happening in the sector. And then we'll sort of have a broader discussion. So we'll try and keep this pretty much to time. So we'll be cracking the whip slightly. Yeah, so obviously everyone seems to have discovered the chat window pretty well. For the most part, we've found that turning off your microphone if you're not talking is generally a good thing. So there's just the icons at the bottom of the screen. Can we think, is there anything else that I've missed here? Or should we just get into it? All right, let's go. So the first presenter is Lene Benaruzzo from Western Sydney University. Over to you, Lene. Do you have slides or something?
Yes, I do, and I believe I can share content. Is that right? Sorry.
That's right, yeah. So just a little share content icon at the bottom right there.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I should have had that ready. Just bear with me for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, presenter rights. So is that working?
It's just converting now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it does that. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, I'm now a moderator. I feel like I've been promoted.
It's all about power.
All right, it still says it's converting.
Yeah, so I think what they do is they convert the slides into images. So I have a feeling that any fancy transitions or animations or whatever probably won't work.
That's all right. I've kept it really simple. I've only got 6 slides. And it's loading 5 of 6, loading complete. Share now. So can you see? Oops.
I just stopped the other thing. So there might be 2 share now buttons.
No, I've only got 1. Select a slide to navigate. You should be seeing Western Sydney Blended Learning Standards.
Yep, there we are.
Yes, okay. It's truncated the heading a little bit, but anyway, sorry about that. Are you good for me to start?
Yeah, please.
All right, put my timer on. So hi everybody, my name is Lene Benaruzzo. I'm the Blended Learning Manager at Western Sydney University. And I'm really grateful to be able to come and share some of the experiences that we've been employing at Western, particularly around standards. And I have 2 standards to show you and also talk about where we're going, how we're evolving our standards. So I thought it would be useful to give a little bit of a context as to where we've been and where we are. So this is the continuum that we've been working on. This will be very similar to where you may also be in your institution. So we, in 2012, we had a very large blended learning strategy that encompassed the blending of 1,000 undergraduate units in a 3-year period, and the employment of school-embedded blended learning advisors and designers. So that was a whole of institutional strategy to blend our units, if you like. In 2014, some of our schools were completely removing lectures, and they were taking a more sort of program level approach to flipping their curriculum. And we've also had some schools who are doing work in the fully online space. So the standards that I'm about to talk to you about encompass those three sort of red-hued spheres there, that they can be applied to blended, flipped, or fully online. The first of our standards is the basic standards. So we have 4 standards, and you'll see them here. They're organisation and appearance. This looks at the site design, where you find important information such as the unit outline, etc. The second one is about consistency and compliance. So this is copyright, privacy, all the policies, making sure that what's in the blended environment in terms of the activities that students are doing is consistent with what's in their unit outline or their learning guide. The third one is about the appropriate use of tools, technologies and apps. And that specifically focuses on making sure that there are expectations and that the tool matches or is aligned to the activity. The reason for this one in particular is that we were doing a lot of work across the institution and found that staff or academics were adding tools and then expecting that students would know automatically what to do with those. And we know that's not the case. And the fourth standard looks at learner resources and supports. So these are the explicit supports, resources that are provided to students that may be relevant to the discipline. So there might be a handbook, or there might be links to professional bodies, etc. But it also encompasses the very basic accessibility, disability, links to welfare services, counselling, etc., etc. So there are 21 criteria across those basic standards, and how we've designed them, and I'm very happy to share them. They're Creative Commons, you can use them as you want. The way the document's being prepared, or the standards are being prepared, is a self-rating checklist. So you can go through and identify whether you're meeting it or not meeting it, or you're working towards it. And we've also placed a fair amount of information there in terms of development strategies. So as an academic or as an educational designer, if you're working with an academic and they want to know, well, how do I make sure I'm using the tools appropriately, then there's developmental strategies, links to resources, links to examples, etc., that people can use. So we find that these basic standards are very well received. We get about 85% consistency across the organisation. So we do some measurement on that and reporting up to deputy deans. The second set of standards that we've got, so where the basic standards focused on the design and the very basic principles of a learning environment, the advanced standards focus more on the pedagogy. And these ones, again, I'm happy to make available to you. These look at some prompting questions for designing a blended or an online course that really looks at what are the activities and the materials and the technology that you're going to be using, and are they aligned to the learning outcomes? What sort of assessment are you going to do, and how is feedback going to be embedded in that? And how are you going to use data to inform your future designs? We also have a specific area around the student interaction and the engagement. So it's again providing lots of opportunities for very meaningful engagement between students and also with students and their instructor. And like the basic standards, we have a section which is really about the quality resources and supports. So again, this is more about the literacy support and the academic sort of support for students as opposed to the basic standards one. So that's what we've been doing. The basic standards have been ones that we can measure quite well. The advanced standards aren't as easily measurable, but they're useful in the design phase. So where we're up to now is we're looking at Quality Matters, which is an international rubric originally developed at the University of Maryland. And there are elements of this rubric that touch on the basic and the advanced standards. But what's really nice about this is that it encompasses a little bit more, and it has a nice points score where you can go through a review process and identify whether some units are actually meeting more of the standards or not. So we're doing some work in this space at the moment, and to show you what they look like, and sorry, you can't see them that well there. There are 8 standards and 43 sub or specific review standards, and so again, these look at the alignment between the learning outcomes at the unit level, the learning outcomes at the module level, making sure they're very well aligned, and then the alignment continues to the materials, the assessment tasks, and the learning activities. So that's all I've really prepared and wanted to talk about, because I thought it would be useful to field any questions. And is that okay with you, Colin and Kate?
That's fantastic. Well, I guess I have a couple of questions. I mean, just looking at this set of standards, so I see that the different standards have points values that are allocated. So does that mean that, so is there an expectation that a course achieves a certain points value and it doesn't matter which way they get there? Or I guess, I mean, what are you doing in terms of compliance? I guess that's what it boils down to.
Excellent question, and it's one we're thinking about at the moment. So we've just gone through some training in the QM rubric and the peer review certification process. So I've just been successfully through that, so I'm now a certified peer reviewer of the QM rubric. And the way in which the points are scored, so if you see anything that has a 3, that's considered essential to a quality course or quality unit. But the showstopper, if you like, would be around 2.1 and 2.2, which is about the alignment of measurable learning outcomes with the activities and the assessments and what have you. So they're the ones, as long as it meets 85%, then you could say that it does meet the QM standards. But the big showstoppers would really be around the alignment of the learning activities, resources, technologies with the learning outcomes.
Cool. So there's a couple of questions here in the chat.
Okay.
So I'm just scanning through. So it looks like Kate's going to talk a bit more about Quality Matters at the end.
Excellent.
And then just asking, how did the implementation go and what was the process for rolling it out?
For the QM or for the basic and advanced standards?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Both.
Both. Okay, excellent. Well, with the QM, we've just convened a group we're calling the QM Lunch Bunch. We're going to be working over pizzas to look at what do our staff need to be able to apply the QM rubric in their course. In some ways, there might be some templates or some university supplied information around accessibility, learner supports, etc., that they can customize. But we also want to look at some activities that they can, student engagement activities that they can build in, and we also recognise that we have to do a fair bit of work around writing measurable learning outcomes. So that's where we are with Quality Matters at the moment. The basic standards and the advanced standards, we initially did that work in 2009, so there was a working party that worked on that. Then we then had a steering committee which was of executive to take it up to them, because really we were saying as an institution, we want to make this, and we put it in policy, that 100% of all learning management sites would apply the basic standards, and we were aiming to get to 100%, but we didn't. So how we measured that was we would go through a random sample of 10 or 30% of sites per semester of undergraduate and postgraduate, and we would go through the learning guides and go through the learning management sites to look for consistencies. and we would then put reports together, aggregated across schools, across the institution, develop strategies that could be used to improve consistencies. And it did highlight areas that as an institution we needed to address. For example, copyright. Copyright was something we weren't doing particularly well, some schools better than others. So we would work with the library to come up with some specific strategies and activities to help raise awareness, make the processes much more streamlined. So we looked after the audits and the compliance. We didn't call it either of those words, we called it consistency checks, and we found that that was a much more friendly term that didn't put people off. How big is your team? Team's quite small at the moment. We've only got 4, 5 including myself. We had one person who looks at the measurement side of things. So that person looked after basic standards analysis, and the advanced standards, we didn't do any measurement. We worked with staff to be able to understand how to apply it. And with the quality matters, we're not at the stage yet of figuring out how we're going to implement that. Yeah, nobody likes compliance. I hope I answered your question.
There was just one quick question there, I think, from Wendy about how you measure current tech, and then maybe we'll move on to Leanne.
Yeah, for sure. So how we measure current technology, at the university we have a digital learning technology toolkit. And what we did is we worked with our blended learning advisors and designers in the schools to find out what technologies and apps they were using to support blended learning, and then we collated and refined that list to come up with those technologies that we would recommend. Ultimately, we want to make sure that the student experience is consistent, so they don't have one technology in one unit versus another technology that kind of does the same thing in another unit. And we also looked at some support resources, both in terms of technology and pedagogic support, and strategies for really leveraging those technologies. But we also wanted to look and highlight at those technologies that were university provided, like the learning management system.
Okay, just in the interest of keeping things going, I think there are a couple more questions, but I think that there will be time at the end of the session. So that's great, and I think we'll be stealing your stuff, Lene. So
you're more than welcome to. I mean, we're moving into quality matters, but the basic standards and the advanced standards, we did a lot of work. It took us at least a year to develop both standards. So feel free to send me any questions if you want a copy of the basic standards and the advanced standards. I'll put them in the chat room window for you, but feel free to email me any questions. And I'm sorry that I do have to leave at 3:30 because it sounds like there's a really good group of people here who have got some expertise and experience that I could benefit from as well.
Absolutely, and I think one of the other things that we can do is in the Moodle Cloud course that we've got set up, we'll have a topic in the discussion forum, because I think this is certainly something that we can keep talking about for some time. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so now Dr. Leanne Yeo from DEAKIN. You take it away, Leanne.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, that was fantastic, Lene. It was very well documented in terms of the type of standards that you have. Now, I'm just gonna see whether I can share my application. Just give me a sec. Just an application, and I probably won't do that. Give me a sec. Okay. All right, so it's slowly converting at the moment, so I might as well just start. I've only got a few slides. So at DEAKIN, essentially we've been offering distance education for quite some time, and we essentially all our units at DEAKIN have an online presence, a cloud presence at DEAKIN. Our cloud DEAKIN is what we call our umbrella term to all our online learning environment and educational technologies that we have at DEAKIN. We've reviewed our minimum standards per se. I know others would prefer to call it quality indicators, etc., in the last year or so. Now, we don't have it really nicely documented and laid out like Lene's work, which is fantastic. I think that's something that we could work towards on within DEAKIN. So essentially my role, I lead the Learning Innovations team within the Faculty of Business and Law. So we do have a central team within our university, DEAKIN Learning Futures, which Chia works in there as well. So we work very closely together on that. In terms of our minimum standards for our cloud DEAKIN presence, it's very simple in terms of its layout. It's very bare minimum baseline, and it does focus on site design and navigation and layout. I've uploaded my slides. I'm just trying to get it to share, and I don't know whether I can. Colin, are you able to click on to the PowerPoint presentation? It's already uploaded and converted.
Looks like it's still processing. Okay, this looks.
That's fine.
Nearly there.
Yep, that's fine. So I think Chia's just shared the link to our, I think, 1 or 2 page standards at the moment. And like I said, it does focus on our site structure and layout going forward. So it does look at, in terms of the type of goals, in terms of having information that we have there about assessment and feedback and unit guide information. We do focus on learning resources, having consistency, logical structure, the type of technical and study support information that's there. We also have another category on learning experiences in terms of how we interact and communicate with students. And obviously about the people, about the contact details of the unit teaching team, and looking at ways that we can engage our students in the cloud as well, using welcome videos. Now, what we don't have going forward, like what Lene has, is obviously further down in terms of what it actually means essentially with all these standards. Now, this is an opportunity for us to go off and have a look at exemplars and giving examples and gathering that for our staff and students as well. So we have university level site minimum standards. Each of the faculties at the moment, especially within my Faculty of Business and Law, we contextualize the university minimum standards, and further to that, in our courses, or others may use the word program, we then contextualize that further for the actual program, making sure that we meet obviously the faculty and the university minimum standards going forward. So to give you an example, one of our learning experiences section where we've just updated for our faculty was that every single unit in our faculty had to offer a minimum 3 synchronous cloud-based session for cloud students. And for us, so my other role in the faculty, I'm one of the deputy course directors of the Bachelor of Commerce, which is our biggest program at DEAKIN. We've taken that further as well, and to allow all our 8 core units in our program to deliver live streamed classes, and also on top of that have weekly cloud-based sessions as well. So you can see that each of the courses going forward, they can contextualize it and have and add more to the minimum that is there as well. So essentially that's what it is, what we have. In terms of, I think what I would talk about more is about the process and the support mechanism that's in place. So with us, I'm happy to say that at DEAKIN we have a really strong support approach to the way we provide teaching and learning support across the university. And with our minimum standards, we don't really like the word minimum standards, but when that was re-looked at a couple of years back, it wasn't really looking at really a top-down approach. It was a midway, halfway, bottom-up approach in a sense, and it was focused on continuous improvement and capacity building. We were looking at identifying areas, units, staff members, where there are areas where we can help them, support them, and enhance what they do. So that's the approach that we take along the way. Now, the work on these minimum standards was a collaboration between all the faculties. We have 4 faculties. It was a collaboration between all 4, central team as well, and other experts as well, such as the library. You have language services and careers, etc. as well involved. We had student consultations. We also worked with departments. So it was quite a lengthy process in that. And I must admit that it's been quite positive, very positive. And what we find that anything in terms of introducing new standards or new technologies towards our approach, it's that scaffolded support that's really important. So yes, we had strong leadership. Yes, we had a lot of support from the ground as well. The scaffolded support, so we listened, from all folks, staff and students as well. We have cloud resources to support staff members, and also the capacity building sessions. So we have central, we have faculty, school-based, and any customized based sessions for our courses as well. What we also do is provide at the elbow support. So to give you an example, with that synchronous sessions that we introduced as a bare minimum for our faculty, obviously we didn't just go ahead and add that in without support. So we had, we provided faculty cloud synchronous sessions, school-based, and obviously course and unit team-based sessions as well. Now, it wasn't just focusing on the technology, we also provided support on the delivery of the actual, the unit and also the course as well. So within DEAKIN, like any other higher educations, the focus is on the program, the whole course in total, and obviously drilling that down further to the unit within our faculty. So far at the moment, areas of improvement and what we can work on, I guess going forward is we love to see, like Lene's area in terms of things being more documented down going forward. That's lovely in that aspect. The part that I haven't yet spoken about is that a couple of years back there was a 3-year massive project within DEAKIN where what we call the course enhancement process, where there was around $20 million invested into that, and every single course within DEAKIN was looked at in terms of reviewed from the course learning outcomes all the way to the design, the delivery, their assessment, and the actual support at the end as well. So we've been through that process. And at the moment, staff members at DEAKIN, essentially, they know in terms of changes, meeting standards, not just meeting standards, but exceeding standards, wanting to do more for our students. It's our culture at the moment. Sometimes, we get asked, do you have disgruntled staff members? Do you have pushback, etc.? I can say for sure that from our faculty business and all, we've had all that hard, difficult, complex conversations at the moment. We're just moving forward, but obviously moving forward and supporting our staff members. The support is absolutely the most, I believe, the most important aspect of this, and getting the right people and supporting our staff members and providing scaffolded follow-up support for us. I think that's all I have to say at this point, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Leanne. Keeping it to time just beautifully. What have we got? So how do you provide virtual support for staff?
Yeah, virtual support. We've signed up with Microsoft, I think, a few years back. So everyone has Skype for Business and OneDrive. Everyone, like as in staff and students. So for us in our faculty, and I can talk more generally at the university level as well. So at the university, we have a division called eSolutions. They have help desk support. They support students, etc. And they also support the learning spaces somewhat as well. Each of the faculties have a teaching and learning support team, which consists of between 5 to 8 staff members. And we provide virtual, as in Skype for Business support as well, where we can share our screens, and it's typically 9 to 5, the type of support that we provide. And we have drop-ins as well. Staff members can just walk in our learning spaces down here and just come in and ask for help. If they feel that their help requires a bit more, 30 minutes, an hour, it's typically quite flexible. They arrange it with one of our team members, in their office or in the learning space, and we can provide support for that as well.
Hi, Leanne, thank you so much. Just a couple of other questions in here. Sue asks, who provided training for staff in OneDrive? I'm guessing she is asking which team, or, is it centrally supported?
Yeah, look, I think at the moment, we are looking, the support for OneDrive at the moment, I think to answer that, a range of people can provide that support. So essentially, the documents and the actual documents, online documents, are written by our e-solutions, our the university's equivalent IT central team. But having said that, so there's the basic functions and features of OneDrive. But looking at how to actually use OneDrive as part of your teaching and enhancing the student learning, that's where the faculty teams can come in and also assist with that and work with units or course directors on that as well going forward. So you'll find that in the teaching learning support teams, you have a mix of academics and educational technologists who provide that support.
Terrific. I might ask another one. It sounds like with such a large team that you really need that support across teams and maybe even high level support. How important do you think getting high level strategic sponsorship or strategic direction and some of that core infrastructure is in just being able to implement this kind of approach?
Yeah, look, absolutely important. You need leadership. I'm happy to say that we have Bev Oliver. She's fabulous, and she's a people person as well. She's very understandable. Really easy in terms of receiving feedback and comments from everyone. She's very open. And we also have William Confineri, our CIO, who's I think won CIO of the Year worldwide just recently, twice I think. So I think with those two folks at Deakin, we're very lucky. William sorting out the infrastructure in place, Bev being very, future thinking in the education sector, and then obviously it goes all the way down to the faculties, the ADTLs, the Associate Deans of Teaching and Learning, and generally it's the culture, it's the the attitude of our staff members. I think that's really key, and like I mentioned earlier, in terms of within our faculty at least, and I'm pretty sure it's in the other 3 faculties, that the conversation of not wanting to move ahead with technology or trying out new things, that's yesterday. It's at the point, and I'll be honest, and I'll say it, and I've heard it many times, if you're not comfortable with that, given that all the support that we have, if you don't agree where our faculty is moving, where our Deakin's planning to go ahead with our strategic plans, then maybe Deakin's not the right place. I'm being honest with that, and we offer a lot of support compared to other universities. So we are very flexible, and the scaffolded support is really important. And generally, at the moment, I can say that within my faculty at least, and I'm sure with the other faculties, we're pretty happy with where we're going.
That's just really refreshing to hear that kind of a top level attitude across the institution.
Oh, absolutely. And they're really open. Our senior execs, they're very open to feedback and comments, and they act on that. And that's where I've written on these slides, it's not just a top-down approach. It's that meeting halfway, bottom up. This is what students want. This is students' feedback to us. They want something consistent, et cetera, along the way. Staff members at the same time. And I think with my role at the moment, I play multiple hats. So yes, I'm the deputy course director of our biggest program at Deakin, but I also teach as well, and I'm also a student, and plus I'm in academic development, so I have multiple hats on, so I can see all of that. And I can happily say that Deakin at the moment, we are supported, and with any introduction of new technologies, having the infrastructure there, making sure that it works well. And yes, at times it does fail, but providing staff members and students that there are reassurances of follow-up support, that there is a hand, 2 hands, 3 hands if you want, to hold them along the way, so from start to finish. So we don't just advise them, this is what you need to do with new technology, but we actually work with them from start all the way to the end as well. So that's what we provide.
That's fantastic. All right, I might keep moving. So thanks again, Leanne, for your time and for the great work that you're doing. Also, Tom's just posted a quick question, but I think this is possibly something that we might be able to cover in the general conversation at the end, because it seems like a pretty universal question. So if you don't mind, Tom. So our final speaker is Kate Mitchell, who's one of the leaders of this SIG and something of a dynamo, makes it all happen. And she's from La Trobe, and she'll be talking about sort of what's happening in broader terms.
Thanks, Colin. Great, thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. It looks like that's happening. And I think, Colin, you're putting up my slides? Or yep. Or do I need to do those? Hopefully that's happening. Let me know if I need to put them up. So, oh, yep, beautiful. Terrific. Okay, so I thought I'd use this opportunity just to, as part of what we've been looking at La Trobe, we're at a point where we have, I guess, a minimum online presence similar to DEAKIN, in that it has some core minimum pieces that should be in the LMS for students, but beyond that, we haven't gotten down to standards the same way that Western Sydney University has, but I guess we're thinking about moving towards that approach, and also looking at how do we tie those things together with some other strategies that are happening, and building good support resources and other components for staff. So some of the work has involved looking at existing standards out there from other universities. So I thought that it would be a good chance to just take everyone through some of the things I'd found through that process, and then open it up to the group to discuss a bit further and raise questions and ideas amongst the team. So just a quick, there we go, it's still coming up. Oh, yep. So a little bit about me. Like a couple of other Kates out there, I play the ukulele and I have a food intolerance. So just so you know that about me and you have a sense of who I am. In terms of the review that I've had a look at, and that a few of us here in our team have had a look at, we went through and found online there are a number of standards and policies out there. So this review is just really some key findings and things that we found encompassed, La Trobe, Federation Uni, Griffith, RMIT, Western Sydney, which Lene demonstrated prior, Wollongong, UWA, James Cook, and then a few international. So part of what I'll do is talk a little bit about quality matters as well, just because I did some training recently through the rubric. So the key findings in terms of, especially around the institutions that were taking more of just a minimum online presence, where there was a lot of variability across, some that had similar to La Trobe, very basic minimum online presence, all the way up to much larger standards or benchmarking or strategies. But in terms of the ones that had some sort of benchmarking or standards similar to Western Sydney, they seem to fall under these key categories. So organisation, design and orientation, accessibility and usability, learning resources and content, activities and engagement, assessment and evaluation, policy and compliance, and learner support. So in terms of what that means, in terms of organisation and design, it seemed to be around, have you organised your subject or unit clearly? Have you provided some kind of orientation and welcome both to the subject, but also to, I guess, online learning, and making sure that students could find where that, the key information that they needed to find and where to go, so that they knew where to start. Media formats and things around clarity and size, particularly around resources, so using a range of media formats, aligning your content to your learning objectives. So alignment seemed to come up a lot across the categories. So in assessment and evaluation, alignment, clarity, so clarity of language, clarity of wording and activity types that you're asking students to engage in, and some other key things around policy and compliance, which is, probably no surprise, and learner support, which learner support is, I guess, where Leanne mentioned the other teams often fit in. So academic support, ICT or technological support, building support structures with other teams, and directing students to where to get help with either the system or with their studies, or just knowing what their rights and responsibilities are. So it seemed that a lot of them, the institutions tended to cover these categories. Probably the ones that were a little bit different were Federation Uni seemed to have a 4-tiered approach, which was looking at some core standards, but also some pedagogical approaches, and then some customization for faculty level, which was quite similar to what Leanne was talking about. So they had a space for additional levels of standards to be placed in at a faculty or college, or that departmental level. Some other approaches that, especially internationally, that I've seen that Lene mentioned one, and I've just recently undertaken the course on, is Quality Matters, and that's from University of Maryland, I think, or Maryland Online, sorry, not university, they're a non-profit, and they implement a rubric that is aligned to several standards. So what they, as Lene mentioned, they have, there's, I think there was 36 or something standards, and they come under 7, 8 key categories. So they're larger standards, but with some sub-standards within that. The key thing that comes out with Quality Matters is this piece around alignment. So where they differ to, say, some of the other institutional approaches is around the fact that alignment actually becomes its own, it's worked into all of the standards, but it also, or most of the standards, but it's also its own standard in its own right. So standard 2, it very much talks about alignment and the fact that there need to be learning objectives at the subject level and at a modular level, so that you've got weeks or modules that make explicit the learning objectives that part of that module, that then feed into the larger subject outcomes or objectives. So, and part of that process of reviewing a subject or a unit based on that approach is that if they're not listed and they're not measurable, then the actual review process can't continue. You have to go back to the academic or coordinator and try and get further information or some work done in order to evaluate that subject. So that was a piece that I thought was quite interesting and a nice approach in terms of really thinking about how do you build in the pedagogical structures. So talking about, in tertiary, usually constructive alignment and trying to make sure that your learning outcomes map to your assessments and map to all of your activities and content. And it seemed that the fact that that was quite explicit and gave some really constructive approaches on how someone should aim to do that was quite different to the way that maybe other institutional standards currently work. I guess the other pieces that I found interesting with something like Quality Matters were the fact that the annotations around the rubric are very, very clear, and the peer review process that goes with, if you're trying to get accredited, is quite a constructive and positive process, or appears to be quite a constructive and positive process. So the piece that I guess I'm always concerned about, and we brought up before, was around audits and not wanting to say that something's an audit, but how do you get quality and effectively evaluate subjects and aim to improve. And the peer review process is very much around providing what Quality Matters calls helpful recommendations, which have some very clear characteristics within those recommendations, that they're specific, measurable, sensitive, balanced, and constructive. And so they essentially are written in a way that that an academic could actually implement those and be seen to have clearly actioned that, and then resubmit that subject and gain a MET and therefore be accredited. So it's not meant to be a punitive process. It's not meant to be it's meant to be quite clear and objective and clear and actionable for staff, so that they actually understand how they can improve their subject design and the ways in which to do that, and that there's clear evidence involved in that. So I think that was a really nice way to look at the process of how do we improve subjects and support people through, because I think so much of what we do online and the way that we write some of these standards, sometimes if it's vague and people don't know what that looks like in practice, or there aren't good examples involved, then it can be very hard to achieve the outcome that you want. So I think keeping that in mind, that part of it is about having some standards that may be aligned to good practice, but it's also about how do we communicate what that looks like and what that means. So I found that the Quality Matters framework and rubric had some interesting takeaways from that. So I guess this is a good point to open it up to the group and ask, well, what can we take from others? Certainly I'm happy to answer any questions that may have popped up within the chat, but I thought it would be a good chance to just find out what other people are doing and what you think we can take from some of these approaches around either developing standards and policies that align technology to staff capacity to pedagogy, and to sustainable solutions or ways of implementing that are going to be positive and lead to the sort of outcomes we want. And even, I guess that then raises the question of what are the outcomes that we want. So that's me done.
Thanks, Kate. That was great. This has been really fantastic. So rather than me banging on, do we have questions in the chat? If anyone wants to turn their mic on and ask a question, please feel free. I'm pretty sure that all works. Otherwise, yeah, just post in the chat. That's good too. All right. I guess, having said that, I wasn't going to bang on. In the absence, I will. I guess for me, the biggest question in all of these things is, yes, we can absolutely see the benefits, and there's certainly a lot of room in our institutions for, supporting, kind of raising overall standards. How do we actually motivate the academics to participate in this kind of practice? What do they get out of it? Why should they do it in sort of fairly cold, hard, pragmatic terms?
I'm happy to take a I'm happy to answer that one slightly. I'm happy to understand, put their 2 cents in too. My 2 cents in that one. Essentially, look, why do academics do it? Well, it's for the students. All right, the students are here. They enroll into our units, our courses. We do it for the students in a sense. We want to give them quality education, a good experience at university, essentially. And we are always needing to improve what we do going forward. We can't just stay still. it's competitive out there, and I can only see that all the work that we're doing, we're genuinely doing this for the students to give them a better experience, better education in university.
One thing I also like to, Tom Cotton here from La Trobe Uni. One thing I'd also like to contribute to that point is helping the academics share their passion for their subjects and sharing that subject with their students. Work through one subject redesign, and that was a big benefit for them to, one, look at their materials with fresh eyes, but to really refine how they communicate with these online tools and systems. That was a very powerful motivator for the academic that I worked with. Cheers.
I think Leanne's right in that it is competitive out there, in that most staff understand that most unis these days have a certain expectation of what's offered to students, but there's also I guess competition. It's competitive out there also, just in terms of potentially for academics in retaining roles within institutions, in that you do need to be seen to be staying abreast of what's happening and looking to improve and looking to stay competitive as well. And given that the workforce is pretty unstable now.
Yeah, Kate, I'm just wanting to add to that as well. Like, part of my experience with at Deakin and working with a lot of academics and staff members here, I can genuinely say that every single academic here anyways in the Faculty of Business and elsewhere as well, I used to work in Central, that they genuinely want to do better. They want to help, they want to improve. Everyone wants to do that. And your comment earlier, Katie, about not sure how much could we get done without that high level support. Yes, yeah, high level support is absolutely crucial. They bring in the resources, and that's why, and I do bang on about support and scaffolded support and resources. It's key. You know, with any organization or higher education, if the leaders out there don't give us the resources and support structures to help our academics, it's very limited. It's a very hard task to do. It's climbing up a mountain without, with wind pushing down strongly down. So leadership, resources, support, and like I said, every single academic, I believe, genuinely want to improve. So it's one of those things where with us, it hasn't been that difficult for us at Deakin. Because with that mindset in mind.
Leanne or anybody else, do you think that we're talking about leadership support, but support for, I guess, encouraging staff to take up technologies or support that's provided by teams to enable academics to improve or integrate technology is one thing, but support can also be about taking things away in terms of giving people time or recognizing teaching. So much of what unis generally recognize in terms of career progression is around research rather than teaching practice. And I guess I'm just wondering about whether those areas that maybe can help free up academic time or allow for better recognition or incentive. I don't know.
I don't think I want to go near the research and teaching nexus at the moment, because we all know that research is important priority across mostly higher education. But I can say that for us, teaching is teaching is well respected at Deakin, across Deakin overall. And in terms of the support, I mean, you did mention a bit about support. We do have initiatives, things in place where our senior managers understand that if you're going to go and trial something new in digital technologies or what it is in your units or course, they understand if things don't turn, turn out right or it's not successful, etc. So we have an evaluation system for every single unit, and some units can be exempt if they're going to try out something new. We have award system in place across the university to award staff members. So so I think, yeah, I mean, I'm being very positive at DEAKIN. I mean, I think we have it really good here at DEAKIN, and hopefully Chia and Jan and etc. agrees as well. But yeah, I think we have it pretty good here.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons that we sort of looked at, you know, we've sort of set up this group, is because there's a lot of different things going on at the universities, you know, sort of around Australia and everything. We don't necessarily hear these kind of stories. So I'm really grateful for you coming, Leanne, and also Kate for sharing everything. So I'm just mindful of time. So I think this has been fantastic. It's really great to see as many people come to this first webinar as there has been, and people signing up to the group and doing everything else. I guess I have one final question to think about, which kind of follows on from the question on the slide, is where do we go from here? What else can we do with this information and these ideas? Like, do we just kind of stop at this point and say, well, that was interesting, or I don't know, like, I mean, I think I'm going to dig into the Western Sydney stuff, and we'll share other documents. So I've added the Western Sydney documents to the TEL advisors site. There's also a discussion forum that's on there now, just with a quick post. Does anyone have any other thoughts on what we might do with this? And Twitter. You don't have to have all of the ideas now, I guess. So, and that's kind of the strength of having the discussion forum. But yeah, like, I think it would be fantastic. This, like, I think there's a lot still to be done in this space, and I'd be really interested in sort of doing more work here if anyone else is. And otherwise, yeah, I guess I'd just like to thank Leanne and Kate, and obviously Chie, and everyone for sort of helping make this first session happen, and obviously everyone who's come along and participated. So thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
I'll stop the recording.
I just wanted to say that I think there's already a lot of stuff out there. That what came up through just looking through different unis is that there's a lot of, even through some organisations as well, that there's a lot of existing work that's been done and a lot of existing resources available freely on the web. So if we can share things amongst, you know, our groups, then I think that really helps. It means people don't have to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, thanks again, guys.